Hello friends. Now did you just say that you found the present vaccine situation in India very confusing? Well, all I can tell you at this point of time is that you are not alone. So do I. Now, we've been hearing about the vaccines within a few months into the pandemic. And as we have said ever so often, that the virologists, the immunologists, the epidemiologists, all the scientists put together have done a fantastic work and produced a vaccine in about the 10th to 11th month since the pandemic started. Now that in itself is a tremendous achievement. Let's rewind to about 3 to 4 months back. We were hearing all the time most of the noise, most of the messaging that was happening internationally about vaccine was about the Oxford vaccine, some research happening in the United States. And because there was so much being heard about the Oxford vaccine, which was taken up by AstraZeneca, that many of us took for granted that Oxford was most solidly and soundly placed, and it would be the first vaccine available for use. And it suited us very well because one of the main sites of production of the Oxford vaccine was in India, in Pune, Serum Institute, one of the largest vaccine producing facilities in the world. Fair enough. But what we failed to pick up, the signals that we failed to pick up was that two other concerns, Pfizer and Modarna. Pfizer, a very well-known pharmaceutical company with tons of products already in their kitty, but Modarna, a very new horse on the track, sort of backed up by a very new crack team of virologists and immunologists. So the Moderna and Pfizer were kind of silently at it. And without making much fuss, they came up with a set of results that was absolutely startling. And in order to sort of underline that it was not just in the statistics, the 90% plus efficacy rate that these two vaccines produced. But we also have to keep in mind that the nature of this vaccine, both Moderna and Pfizer, are what we call the mRNA vaccines, the messenger RNA. It's absolutely targeting the process by which the messenger RNA signals to our cells to make the antigen, the antibodies that would help us to fight the virus. So it's extremely well targeted. It's not desperately new. Ever since the times of the measles virus, scientists were trying to put this method to practice. They couldn't because mRNA is a very fragile substance. It's very difficult to make it last outside of the body. So how do we succeed this time? We succeeded this time because the scientists was able to gift wrap the mRNA in a kind of lipid layer. And depending upon what kind of lipid layer you used, a kind of gift wrap around a present, that the temperature requirements were different. So Moderna has a temperature requirement of minus 20 odd degrees. Pfizer has a pretty high requirement of minus 70 degrees, but once you take out of the minus 70 degrees, at about minus 10 to 15 degrees, this vaccine can stay viable for about 3.5 days. So this is the best and the most modern technology which people worked on very silently. Results were very strong, and it wasn't a surprise at all that in the very last part of the race, they seemed to have stolen a march over the Oxford compatriots, and they got the signals for usage in United Kingdom and in United States. The Oxford Astra vaccine, which again we are very proud to say Pune Serum Institute is associated with, in terms of the modernity of technology, it's perhaps a shade behind the mRNA vaccines. It is made out of this the vector intermediate adenovirus model, where we have a chimpanzee adenovirus in which we put in a bit of this spike protein material which goes to our body, and our body sort of makes the antibodies necessary to fight the coronavirus. Well, that worked very well, and most of the work was, perhaps more than half the work was done in the days when scientists were working with the Ebola virus. The trouble was that when compared to the Modarna and Pfizer, when the results came out, the results were not as sparkling. They were around 70, 72, 73%. That can happen. Anything above 50, 60% is considered to be very good in terms of vaccine. But there was a bit of a muddle up. There was a bit of an error in their stage 3 trials, because not everybody received the same dose. About 2,000 odd patients had received half dose in the beginning, full dose in the second dose, and the others received full dose both first time and second time. I'm sure you all know that all the vaccines now being discussed are double dose vaccines. You need the first dose and you need a second dose after about three weeks, 21 days. Why did that happen? It wasn't an act of cleverness, it was an act of error, which the scientists confessed, and some of them went as far as to say that it was an error on the part of the manufacturer, that 2,000 odd doses delivered during the first dose were half doses. But the error was claimed to be giving better results than the actual protocol. Those patients who received half the dose had better results, more than 80% efficacy as compared to the others who had the efficacy around high 60s and 70%. Now, honestly speaking, if you and I did a mistake like this in any routine scientific, clinical, medical publication, our paper would end up in the dustbin. But in these days of the pandemic, with the world under stress, scientists and perhaps governments may take a lenient view of the mistake and consider the overall efficacy of the vaccine. And if informed circles are to be believed, then within the next fortnight, the United Kingdom government will probably give the limited usage approval to the Oxford vaccine. And once they do so, hopefully, Government of India will also follow through. Some of you may ask that why can't Government of India itself give an emergency usage straight away? Because at this point of time, we are not holding any approved vaccines in our hand. It's as simple as that. Pfizer, Modarna is completely sold out. United States, Europe, Canada, Middle East, Singapore. It's like block booking. It's like booking concert tickets. It's like advance booking for a 2020 match. Both of them are commercial companies. So they've completely sold out their stocks, And given their strong results, people have given an arm and a leg. I believe certain countries have paid a premium and booked even future deliveries from both Pfizer and Modarna. Once again, knowledgeable circles tell us that India does not remotely figure as far as this delivery list of either of those companies are concerned. May not be in huge numbers, may not be in bulk, but we won't be entirely surprised if few of these vaccines make their appearance into the medicine shops in the near future to be available for retail across the counter. So at the moment, every day you see a lot of directives, a lot of protocols, a lot of drills going on. But quite rightly, absolutely rightly, many of you are asking, what the hell, why don't you go ahead and start vaccinating? Well, you can't start vaccinating because as of this moment, we don't have any vaccines. So once we cross the threshold and approve the Oxford vaccine, the Serum Institute vaccine, we will be at least having something in our hands. What about our own stuff? What about the vaccine being made in Hyderabad? Bharat Biotech, Covaxin. That is a slightly more backdated technique in the form of a whole virus which has been made inactive. You call it attenuated vaccines. But it works. It has worked for many a viral disease. But, number one, their trials are a little bit behind. It is expected that they will take at least next 2 months to come up with their results. And it's not entirely clear how big is their manufacturing capacity and whether they can take the pressure of vaccinating most of the country. But if we add up the capacity of Serum Institute, and if we add up the capacity of the Hyderabad unit, Bharat Biotech, then perhaps two of them put together can put out something like 25-30 crore doses within the first 4 to 6 months. Once again, remember that 25 or 30 crore doses only vaccinates half the number of people because each person gets 2 doses. So that is the current situation. The Russian version, Sputnik, has been in the background. Sputnik is almost a photocopy of the Oxford vaccine, a little bit different, because as Oxford uses the identical adenovirus vector-based stuff for the first and the second dose, the Russian vaccine uses a slightly different, their second dose is slightly different from the first dose. Many virologists think that that is very clever, and because the Russians are reporting results which are apparently better than the Oxford results. I wish they had followed rigorously the scientific protocols, because they avoided the stringent stage 2, stage 3 trials. Hence, people are not really looking at their results with a lot of respect and trust. There are other vaccines in the pipeline. India has the Zydus vaccine, another one called Novavax. But the most interesting one would be a vaccine from the Imperial College, which Johnson & Johnson is involved with. Because hopefully, if they come up with smart results, it will be the first single-dose vaccine. It is again a mRNA vaccine, the most specific vaccine, but you only require 1 shot of it. There is some interesting advanced work going on with another mRNA vaccine which you can inhale and put it through the nose, because if you have an inhaled form of a vaccine, you can greatly reduce the dosages required. So all in all put together, we've heard many times that there are A, B, C, D, E, F, that many different types of vaccines. We've got to wait a little bit, because as we speak, we haven't got anything in hand stacked across the counter. How soon? Maybe around a fortnight. And how will it be available? If you want my opinion, I do not think that we are going to have a comprehensive government-led universal vaccination program to vaccinate everybody and anybody. There will be a government program, but along with that, as soon as the government gives the green signal, vaccines will be available in the regular shops, in the medicine shops, in the pharmacies. So there will be a double-barreled approach. There will be a pay-as-you-like kind of approach. And there will be a government distribution approach. You are welcome to take whichever suits you. Indications. Once again, we've read in the papers that the healthcare workers come first in the line, then the 60 plus with comorbidities, and then you go down the ladder. If you're paying for your stuff and buying it from a medicine shop, I honestly don't see how the stratification of the priority can apply to a person who's paying about 3,000, 4,000 rupees and getting a dose of the Serum Institute vaccine. So probably the idea of having different priority sectors and working down the priority scale would only apply to the government method of distribution. But something that we should always avoid is the moment you have a couple of vaccines figuring in the government and in the private retail system, there will be many more rumors about bootlegged, smuggled vaccines being available in the dead of night in some market or the other. Please, for God's sake, don't go for that, because nobody can trust on the quality of that product. And if it is something dubious and dangerous, it may end up harming you. How safe are the vaccines? Well, if you look at the records, if you look at the data that the companies have published, the trials have published in very respected magazines journals like the Lancet, there have been side effects which have been noted, but they've been few and far between. There are side effects of air travel. There are side effects of traveling on the motorway. There are side effects of everything. Even in the days children are vaccinated with polio, 1 in every million child who gets a polio vaccine can have a side effect. There is no treatment, there is no medicine which has no side effect, but they have been quite within acceptable limits so far. Here we have to do some soul searching, and here I think we have to echo sentiments that have been expressed by certain writers. There is a fantastic article by Mr. Thakur of late, who looked at the weakness in the regulatory mechanisms of drugs and vaccines in India. You've heard recently that a gentleman in Chennai had a terrible side effect, a brain problem, encephalopathy, from the Serum Institute vaccine. And instead of having a proper scientific discourse, a proper scientific investigations, as soon as this thing was red flagged, the first response from the company was to counter-sue the poor man. Now I think that was a very knee-jerked and a very immature kind of response. Our minister from Haryana contracted COVID a few days after receiving the first dose of Covaxin, Bharat Biotech. And once again, it was made out to be a sensational political event. We did not get to either read or hear that what was the scientific explanation of it. And not just in India. When Pfizer reported some of these allergic reactions, facial nerve problems, skin rashes, anaphylactoid reactions, we remain a little skeptical that in this moment of hard push and euphoria, if these things have been looked at in adequate detail. But in the recent past, if you consider that the Oxford trial, when this was happening in Brazil and United Kingdom, and someone came out with a spinal cord problem, the trials were halted for a period of 2 weeks till everything was sort of investigated, and the scientists were reasonably happy that this was not due to the vaccine. So side effects can and will happen. They have to be of an acceptable incidence, and when it happens, it has to be looked at in great detail by the scientists. The Indian drug controller has really not been without blemish, especially in the COVID times. Biocon came up with a very dubious molecule called, I think, ituzumab for the immunomodulation, which was hardly tested in less than 50 patients. And in a great hurry and scurry, in a complete, back-scratching kind of method, approval was given for clinical usage. And within a few weeks or a few months, it was found to be absolutely useless. And there was blame game going on as to, who seemed to have approved it. You could not sort of trace it back to any person or any particular set of paperworks at all. Now, this is not the degree of slipshod work. This is not the responsibility that we expect of a serious drug controlling agency of our country at this day and age. So we have a lot of catching up to do as far as that is concerned. Now, vaccine is one thing. Yes, we are having to wait. We don't have we are a little behind, but I'm sure it will come. But vaccination is perhaps as much a challenge as sort of formulating a vaccine is. Vaccinating a country of 120 million through the national program, it will be a tall task, because we've only ever vaccinated about 14-15 lakh people per month. At that rate, it will take us 7-8 years to vaccinate the country. So we have to do it much faster. This is double dose. This is intramuscular injection. So it requires a different level of preparation altogether. I hope there is enough planning going on to make sure that we are well ready and well equipped for it. But it has to be the private sector and the government sector in a coordinated program. The other danger is politics interfering with public medicine. Politics has a great tendency of adulterating anything and everything it touches. In India, we had a taste of it during the Bihar elections. God bless us as we speak to you from Kolkata, that what is going to happen during the Kolkata elections. Possibly you're going to have a sip of the vaccine for every vote you cast for the right party. But more seriously and more importantly than that, say in Bengal, when the election fever reaches its crescendo sometime in the month of February, March and April, that is the time when the public vaccination program should also have been at its peak. Can I imagine in West Bengal, in India, that the public health machinery will not be distracted by the political activity, will not be diverted by the gundas and the netas and everybody swarming around, and will be left alone in peace to carry on with their job. Rather unlikely, but I hope so. So friends, yes, it is a bit confusing. We perhaps in our country won't have access to the vaccines straight away that you and I would like to have, but we will have access to vaccines that would be efficient, that would be good. We have to use it with preparation, we have to use it with care. And we can only hope and pray that the government comes up with a simple, understandable, transparent communication with the people, that what is going to be available and when, how much of it is going to be available through the private down the shop system, how much of it is going to be available through the national programs. This is high time that we want the details. And when there are important meetings about vaccination and vaccination programs, pardon my saying so, this meeting need not be with the prime ministers and chief ministers, because I do not know of a single chief minister or a prime minister of this country who is adequately qualified either in virology or immunology or preventive health. This meeting should have been amongst the public health specialists. This meeting should have been amongst the scientists, the virologists. And we need proper inputs from preventive health, from basic medicine, from immunology, and for God's sake, if for once the politicians need to stay a little bit away, this was the moment. So we hope, pray, and demand that the scientists are left to do the job in peace the way they would like it done. We have to be patient. It will take nearly 6 to 8 months further for an effective vaccination program of India to take some kind of effect. So it will not be a switch on, switch off kind of experience. And for that period of a good part of the first half of 2021, we have to keep up with the same amount of caution, with the same habits, the same movement precautions that we have taken so far. India has done reasonably well. We have really fought hard for a good part of last 1 year. The end of the battle is in sight. Let us persevere. May God speed us. Wish us luck. Thank you.